study a little bit on topic 7. You can drop the Phillips curve for topic 7 for now, but read through the inflation and unemployment concepts so that from there you are able to derive the AS curve. Then of course, we also learn how to derive graphically the AD curve. Okay, right, so in our last lecture, we also went on to discuss the use of the ADAS model. So I'm going to use that as a quick recap with you. Okay, so let's turn to page. Page 20. There we are. Let's look at page 24. Okay, let's go a bit back to page 19. So we finished the discussion of the AS curve, which you could see in page 19. You can use actually 3 models, and you must be competent in at least 2 of them, primarily the sticky wedge model, then any one of them. So what is the objective of the discussion in page 19? Right, we know the AS curve, the vertical axis is price level, which is affected by how much wages change. So therefore, if we are able to know how much wages can change through the first 2 models, or through how much prices can change through the third model, we are able to discuss not just how the AS curve looks like, but also a perspective in terms of how the AS can be steeper or flatter. Right, so this is our key objective, to discuss how the AS curve can come about, as well as the slope of AS. So a quick recap, page 20. Okay, that was our key discussion where we depicted 3 sets of diagrams. Alright, where you have the labour market, production curve, as well as plotting out the standard AS curve. So we usually let price goes up. We start off with the sticky wedge model to draw A and B first. Then we discuss the extent of wages can go up. Alright, and then discuss in this case your AS curve can be steeper. So that is using graphical approach. So sticky wedge model is not difficult, it is just very graphical in nature. Right, so this is one aspect. Then we discuss also workers' misperception model. Right, still focusing on wages, but now highlighting that wages can change. But how much wages change is now anchored on whether they have perfect information. But most of the time, they don't. Right, that tells us that the increase in wages is often slower than the increase in prices. So that's why there's a misperception, and the ratio is given as P over the PP. Alright, this is the misperception ratio. And that will allow us to know when there is a misperception, we're able to discuss labor demand and labor supply. So if the misperception, the ratio is exactly 1, which is given in the opposite page, column, should I say row number 1. If the actual price and the expected price are the same, it means workers set the correct wages. Labor supply equals labor demand. So there would be no unemployment, U equals to UN, Y equals to YN, the line is vertical. So this workers' misperception model is purely analytical. Alright, however, our focus is not on the ideal situation, but knowing that in the real world, alright, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So the misperception ratio is always larger than 1. So telling us that workers are always willing to work. So therefore, the firms will employ the workers and produce the goods. Alright, so you have to know where to anchor, and that was the discussion in page 22. Alright, that generally labour supply exceeds labour demand, output will increase. So that's why the curve is upward sloping. Then you analyze the degree of misperception. So if the gap between labour supply and labour demand is bigger, it means firms will increase labour demand more. So with the same increase in price level, output can increase more. So it's a very theoretical discussion. So you can't really just use diagram, and you cannot use equation to say which variable go up or down. You have to embrace what it means when labour supply exceeded labour demand. What would the firms do to the workers? You will hire them. Alright, so the bigger is the misperception, means W over P, the gap is big, which means to the workers, alright, they get a low wage but they're happy, but the firms are more than happy to hire them. Then output will readily increase. Alright, so this is workers' misperception model. So spend a bit of time trying to understand the inequality between labour demand and labour supply. Okay? Then I ended with the third model, which I mentioned. It is actually the most difficult because focus is on equation 10. You literally need to memorize equation 10. Right? Unlike the first two, if you did not remember the equation, at least you can give the economic deduction, whereas this you can't. Right? So here you need to put this equation, that this is actually the revised SRAS, and you look at this is the slope, 1 minus S times alpha divided by S. So you must focus on the coefficient S, alright, which is the degree or the share of firms in the economy already facing sticky prices. Alright, so this behavior is not that difficult if you focus on S itself. So generally firms face sticky price. It's because firms already set prices in advance. Alright, firms are not purely reactive. They are forward looking. So firms, whenever they set prices, they know 2 to 3 years down the line, what is the trend of oil prices, wages, transport costs, etc. He will incorporate those costs of production way ahead. So whenever, for example, wages of cleaners in Singapore goes up, the workers, although had an increase in wages, but firms need not increase price because he already marked up the price. So here we want to discuss, therefore, the proportion of firms, who actually don't change prices at all. Okay, so in this case, this is where I wrap up the discussion to show you the different sizes of S. So you must be quite maths inclined in this case because we are focusing on the slope. So if S is 0, all the firms have to change prices. So when wages goes up, all the firms increase price. So in this case, the curve will be vertical. You will retain the workers, but you have to effectively mark up price, or you can use the slope that tells you, the slope in this case is infinity. So AS would be vertical for firms with flexible prices. If S equals to 1, it's like 100%. All the firms cannot adjust prices. So that actually tells you if there is an increase in the price. Okay, they don't need, if there's an increase in wages, they don't need to increase price already because they already have marked up. Right? So in this case, they can increase output. You can see output will increase at the given P level. That's why the line is horizontal. So these are very extreme cases. They seem quite easy to explain, but they don't really exist. So that's why eventually we must discuss S between 0 to 1. It means more than 0%, less than 100%. So firms generally, wages goes up, they will mark up price. Right? So that will only tell you it is upward sloping. Then you talk about S being large. If 75% of your firms in the economy don't mark up price, right? So in this case, you can see the increase in price is small, right? The SRAS is flatter. So one way is to substitute into the equation 1 minus S divided by S. So the change in the slope is only 0.33. Then you reverse it. What if now only 20% of the firms in the economy, right? Okay, face, this is a typo, should be sticky price, cannot be flexible. Okay, if 20%, very small percentage of your firms face sticky price, right? It means 80% they will face flexi prices. Right? So in this case, they would readily increase the price. One way is to substitute the S into the slope. 1 minus S divided by S. The slope is now bigger. The AS is steeper. Right? So the share of firms in the economy will actually tell us the bigger is the S, the more sticky are prices, the steeper is, right? The more sticky is the prices, or S is large, the flatter is the curve. Vice versa, right? The lower is the S, means a lot of firms can change prices, right? The steeper is the AS curve. So this cannot be memorized. It's really through a very systematic way of induction, looking at the fraction of firms who actually are willing and able to change prices. So you decide between the two models, workers' misperception or sticky price model. Right? But ideally, you should study all three because it gives you both perspective on wages and prices. Okay, so that was the discussion of the AS curve. So with that, we are ready to look at the actual ADAS model. Okay, we're going to look at the ADAS model. Now, as I mentioned, right, a lot of times students thought this topic was easy because they thought only two lines intersect. But it's not. You saw that AD came from IS, LM. You saw that AS is wage setting, price setting, equivalent to labor demand equals labor supply. In other words, every time when we do ADAS, it's not demand and supply of goods, that's all. Because at the equilibrium point, right, IS will give us goods market. LM will give us interest rate, money market. Right, and the AS curve will actually give us labor market. Right, so ADAS is not total demand meets total supply, which you thought you learned so in your earlier years when you did the model. Here is different. You are actually concurrently talking about three markets. So that's why you must be good at all three markets. Generally, students are weaker in labor market. It's very natural. Because this is very much microeconomics. So those who don't do micro will find it a little struggle. But as long as you can explain wages affecting your prices of goods, you're almost there. Okay? So when we apply the ADAS model, we must first distinguish short run and long run. Every economy must have short run money. It means every economy will have a set of ADAS. Right, so let's look at page 25. Let's include in the diagram. prices in the economy are fairly sticky. So when you draw your AS curve, it's good to draw it slightly flatter. But there's no right and wrong. Okay, so, but conceptually, it should be quite flat. Because wages and prices in the short run are very sticky. Okay, then of course put in your AB curve. So let's look at point A. So point A will give you P1 and Y1. So this is a country's short run. Okay, for example, point A for China. But is the country at long run or not? We must therefore compare with your natural output, Yn. Right? So we take an example. If this is China, her output is at point A, Y1. But we measure it against her natural output, Yn, which is a vertical straight line. Then we can see China is only in her short run equilibrium, but she is not at her long run equilibrium. Alright, okay? And here you can see there is an output gap. Okay, there's actually an output gap. And not only that, if you look at this diagram, okay, the Yn will also give you your PE1. So if you look at China, right, okay, her Y1 is more than Yn, and at the same time, her actual price level, P1, exceeded her PE1. So there is a tendency that in the medium run, it means economists or the government announce the inflation rate in China. The people will realize PE is too low. Right? Workers will actually increase PE and W. They will do that. Right? Because they realize they set wages according to PE. But inflation rate is really P1, or prices is at P1. So that tells you P and, or should I say PE and wages will both go up. And we know the SRAS eventually will shift left, right? And it will actually reach point B. Right? Then only at point B, you are at long run equilibrium. So the economy may not start at long run, but she definitely has a short run. Her own set of output determined by AS and AD. But only comparing to the Yn, then she can know. So in this case, she is not at long run yet. In the medium run, later we will re-emphasize in page 26, the economy will actually adjust the AS, it will actually shift up. Alright, okay, to reach point B, then her economy with her AS and AD, LRAS, can then reach long run. Okay, so that's why we say here in the short run, the actual price level, P1, always differ from the expected price level. Right, so when I taught you the SRAS I mentioned, you must be very careful knowing how to read Yn and PE. Because at Yn, it means labor market is at equilibrium. Prices set by the firm is equivalent to wages based on PE1. Right? So you must pay attention to PE1. So one difficulty or one hurdle that students face in this topic is because they don't pay enough attention to PE1. They spend too much time on shifting the curve, only analyzing what happens to output. They don't actually pay enough attention to expected price level, but that is the indicator how you adjust the curves. Alright, so in this case, if the curve, the economy has an output Yn, output is at Y1 instead, then there's a tendency the economy will have to contract backwards. Okay? Now, besides point A, there's another possibility that your AD may be too low. Let's draw another set. So you may not be at AD1. Instead, you may be at AD1 prime, where you are now at point D. So you can see point B is known as the short run equilibrium. Okay? So assuming the same SRAS and LRAS, point D, it could be like for USA, but we assume the AS and LRAS is the same, just for comparison. So point D is called a short run because the country's demand, which is AD1 prime, equals to AS. Okay, but again we can see for US, the output Y2 now is less than Yn. And you can see if you put the price line across, P2 is lower than her PE, right? Or specifically PE1. So again, in the short run, actual price P2 is lower than the expected price, right? So we know if you are at point D, your economy is in a recession, so naturally prices are low. But expected inflation can be high because people still perceive oil and food prices are rising. But we know eventually the firms will, should I say workers, will lower PE, will lower wages. Right? And the SRAS will eventually shift right. Okay? In this case, to point E. We will reach long run. So even before we embark on using the model, we must first learn how to read the basic diagram, short run and long run. You must know where is your short run, and you must have a sense how you will reach the long run. And not through shifting AD. Right? Was primarily because of which setting, price setting adjustment. The AS either shift up for case of China, or the AS can shift down to point E for US. Right? So that tells us economy eventually can reach the long run equilibrium. So a detailed discussion is given in page 26. Okay, telling you that economy goes from short run to reach the long run. Okay, and this adjustment itself is automatic. So let's go all the way to the bottom here first. So later you can see all our discussion does not involve policy. Right? There is also actually no application of FP or MP to shift ISLM. But it's purely wage and price flexibility, meaning to actually shift SRAS. Alright, so I've briefly illustrated to you, but now let's move on to the detailed discussion. Okay, so there are case A and B. Case A is like China. Okay, so highlighting when you read through page 26 and 27, you don't see government's hand in it. It was purely automatic. Okay, so let's look at the top of the page. Case A, example, China that I gave you was at point A. Okay, so just to summarize what we saw just now one more time. P1 was more than PE1. Right? The actual economy's prices was higher than expected. So naturally workers cannot cope. But before that, this is what they will do. PE will first go up. So two things will happen. PE is the vertical intercept of SRAS. So it goes up. So that's how we know the SRAS shift left. So this vertical intercept is just to guide you how to shift the curve. But you cannot write this answer alone in the exam. It doesn't make sense. This is only the maths part. But this is the intuition. Prices of expected level goes up, wages goes up. Okay? But the firms have not adjusted prices yet. So in this case, your real wage went up. Your price is still at P1, but you start to increase wages upwards. So real wage goes up, labor demand goes down. Output will go down. Right? And at the same time, price also go down. Okay? In this case, you will reach point P. Right? Where you can see that in this case, your P3 equals to PE1. I'll show you the effect later on. Okay, so we don't hurriedly shift. Shift of the curve is through, one way to check is through next equation. Last week I've shown you PE and YN is the intercept of the AS curve. So PE goes up, intercept goes up. But this is the intuition. Okay, so while you are here, I'll just flag page 25 to show you. The AS curve will shift up because PE is this. Okay, and you can see output starts to drop. Right? Wages goes up, the firms cannot cope, the firm starts to cut back output. But the firms must also increase price until point P. Okay, you can draw the SRAS there, but it is not critical, so you can just leave it alone, but you can see your P3 equals PE3. You increase your PE, you cut back your output, but you continuously increase price. Right? So you can see the entire process is automatic. Government did not tell the workers, right, please adjust your PE. No, it's purely through economic behavior of the firms, right, by reacting to the workers. Okay, so just leave it as P3 equals PE3. Sorry, So when you go back and revise, can you remind yourself everything is automatic? There is no government. It's not government set wages to go up. It's not. It's purely by workers. And this reaction here is by firms. So there is no government intervention. Okay, so that was case A of China. After you have overexpanded your output, your economy will automatically fall back to YN. But you end up with a higher expected and actual price level. Okay, so now let's look at case B. This is example USA, which I did for you at point D. So we'll write out the analysis in greater detail. So just now we have P2 less than PE1. That's how we know, right? Workers will lower the PE. It's too high. Okay, so as a result, split into two. Vertical intercept drops. The SRAS will have to shift down or to shift right. So this is the maths intuition, telling you how your curve will look like later on. But you have to put in the analysis, right? So workers will lower wages. Okay, prices haven't changed, so W over P will go down. Right, prices stays as it is, but wages have a downward pressure. So to the firms, real wage goes down, labor demand will go up, output will increase. Okay, and eventually, like what we mentioned, you will reach point P. Right, as the output increases, right, with wages falling, price will drop, and you will get your P4 equals PE4. I'll show you the diagram in a minute, but This is the intuition, and this is the data to prove. Alright, this is US. Okay, for people who actually return back to job, find a job. Okay, right? More than half are earning lesser. So this intuition of cutting PE and wages do exist in the real world. Alright, so if your economic recession is too long or the problem is too severe, workers have to accept wage cut, although they resisted it. Okay, right? But can it go all the way too low? It can't. So there's always a limitation. Okay, so let's go to the diagram. You are at point D. Okay, so you can see for US, the PE will drop. That's why for AS curve, will shift down. So draw if you want to, if not, just leave it alone. Right, so in this case, you can see output will increase, like what we analyzed, and we will reach point E, because at point E, your final price P4 was exactly the expected price level. So if you actually re-look at page 25, where is the focal point? Expected price level, not output. So students are capable of shifting curves, but they never realize adjustment must be based on PE to shift the AS curve. Right? So examiners will pick up all these fine pointers when you actually do this topic. And of course, the emphasis is you don't need government at all. Right? You actually don't need the government at all. So economy will automatically move into long run, be it point B for China, point E for US, purely because of flexible wages and prices. Right, so with this intuition in mind, we will now want to apply the concept, and that's where we move on. I'll skip a few pages, they're all just merely reading. We'll move on to page 29. So this is the first application of the model. Alright, so we're not interested just to shift the curve. We want it to use in macroeconomics. We discuss effectiveness of monetary policy. Okay, and for monetary policy, there was a term known as classical dichotomy. So this is often tested in section A in the exam. However, I want to highlight this will take approximately 15 minutes. So if you are doing this question, you must be very careful. Alright, you must be very careful. The diagram must be complete. Every point must be drawn. So this is a popular exam question, but you know section A true false question, you're only given 10 minutes. So if you're doing this, you have to borrow time. So you shouldn't do this question first. You should do it last, and if maybe don't even do it at all. So you must be quite clear. Alright, so I'll give you the one set of analysis, then we get a chance to draw ourselves. So here we're doing a monetary expansion. So we know M increase because government, right, buy bonds. So this is actually our topic 4 and topic 5. Right, money market will expand because when government buy bonds, government pay us or pay the banks. Loans in the banks will grow, money supply increase. So LM will shift down. So let's put in the numbering. Okay. So the economy started at A1 first. Okay, let's mark out the point. Initially at an output Y1. So now if the LM were to shift down, interest rates will drop, output will increase to Y1 prime. So what is occurring on the top diagram is something that we are familiar. Okay? However, now we want to incorporate in the ADAS diagram. So still looking at this initial point A1. We bring it down. Right? Remember, okay, ISLM will give you a point on the AD curve. And if we call Y1 equilibrium output, there must also be a AS curve. That's how it gives you your output Y1. So put a Y1 as a bracket first. So we know the LM has shifted. But to effectively discuss whether policy works or not, we make an assumption. Okay, so look at this point here, output was Y1, and we assume it is equals to Yn first. This is an assumption. So in the past, when you do ADAS, you merely shift, but here it was intentional. We let the economy start at long run. So in other words, this vertical line here, you can label it as LRAS.